Clinton on something. It's got to be something, anything. He handed out subpoenas and ran official taxpayer-funded investigations into everything from the Clinton family's Christmas card list. I kid you not. He called 34 witnesses in an investigation of the family Christmas card list. He subpoenaed more than 40,000 documents investigating the Christmas card list. Turns out the Christmas card list was okay. In the end, it checked out. Dan Burton also investigated whether taxpayer funds were being spent to process and respond to the fan mail that was being sent to the Clinton family cat, who was named Socks. I mean, Socks can't write it himself. Sorry. The Socks fan mail affair also in the end panned out. Turns out Socks was cool. It was okay. Congressman Dan Burton shot a watermelon or a cantaloupe or a pumpkin or something in his backyard to try to prove that Bill and Hillary Clinton were murderers. In his various investigation, he subpoenaed more than 140 Clinton administration officials. 140. He sent out more than 1,000 subpoenas altogether. He sent out random subpoenas to people whose names he misspelled, who weren't actually the people he was trying to subpoena. He was subpoenaing so many people. Dan Burton whirled so feverishly around the Clinton family, he made dervishes dizzy. And when Nutty Dan Burton needed a chief investigator, he found exactly the right guy. He hired the guy from the storming into the hospital room, peering through the windows, stalking the poor family of that woman who had killed herself in the 70s, who had nothing to do with Bill Clinton. He hired David Bossie to be his top investigator. And it's interesting, in the end, David Bossie turned out to be even too much of a scandal for crazy Dan Burton. In 1998, David Bossie got his boss, Dan Burton, in trouble. On Meet the Press, Tim Russert caught him out for selectively releasing tiny little pieces of a super long transcript that had been selectively edited and cut up in order to make the Clintons look terrible and very guilty, even though the full transcript, the full tapes, exonerated them.
As you know, your office released 27 pages of transcripts, and I went through them very carefully. We have obtained the full transcript and the full audio tape, and there's a major portion left out involving Hillary Clinton. Mr. Burton, that is rather exculpatory for Hillary Clinton, and you left it out when you released that document. This was such a critical tape, and the language about Hillary came very next in line, and your transcript that was released to the press just ended right there because it seemed to be favorable towards Hillary Clinton.
Well, I know what you're getting at, and you're trying to make it look like we're trying to audit the tapes or change the tapes to make it look worse than it possibly is.
Yes. Yes. Nailed it. That was exactly what you did and what Tim Russert nailed you for on live TV. And the reason I can say that unequivocally is because Congressman Dan Burton did end up admitting it and ultimately apologizing. And he ultimately accepted the resignation of his staffer, his chief investigator, that guy, David Bossie. He let David Bossie take the blame for that scandal. I mean, when people talk about the Clinton scandals of the 90s, and specifically that part about the Republicans overreaching and overplaying their hand and embarrassing themselves and it backfiring on them, this is the stuff they're talking about. And Dan Burton was sort of the captain of that team. And Dan Burton, interestingly, it's funny, he ended up sort of disappearing into obscurity. I mean, he stayed in Congress for a long while longer, but he just became more of a joke than anything. I mean, during the Clinton impeachment proceedings, Dan Burton was one of these guys who railed against President Clinton for his sexual impropriety. That was very soon before Dan Burton himself had to admit that he not only had been carrying on his own extramarital affair, he actually had a whole